All right, we are live. Hey everyone, welcome to another week's episode. And thank you so much for making it. I know we are almost in December right now, and I have 11 participants on call, including myself. So that's 10 new participants. That means we still have a lot of interest in this admission season. Usually, I think last year when I did a webinar at the same time, we did not have so many people. For the benefit of people who would be watching this on YouTube at a later point in time, if you click on show more details right below the video, at a later point in time, we would be listing out all the major questions that were discussed in this particular session. And right next to the question, we would be putting a timestamp. So if you click on the timestamp, you can go to that part of the video so that you can just watch whatever is of more relevance to you and skip the rest. Okay, so if you're a older candidate and then I'm answering some questions for younger candidates or on deferred MBA programs, that might not be that relevant for you, right? But then again, we would also be discussing questions that older candidates face. So you can just skip to those questions and vice versa, right? So that is a general tidbit. Let me give you a very short introduction. Some of the names seem familiar. Rahul, I think we've corresponded before. Gaurav, Gitika, Ashwin, Pradeep. So some of the names definitely seem familiar. Thank you for making it again. I think Vichitra Veer is joining us. I don't know if we've corresponded, but I've definitely seen your email before. Your name is quite difficult to forget. It's quite unique. All right. So about a brief introduction, right? So my name is Karthik. I'm the founder of HKUST Academy. I'm an alumnus of IIT Madras and Stanford. I hit a point where I was not very happy in my corporate career. Okay. And what happened after that was, why was I not happy? That's the most instructive thing. I felt I was capable of creating a much bigger impact than I had the position to do so. And because of that, obviously I spent about 6 to 8 months thinking I got myself a bad job. But later I realized there was nothing wrong with the job. There was nothing wrong with the company. It was just that I was in the wrong role. I was in a technical role and I wanted to be in a management or an administrative kind of role, right? So that is when I explored MBA options. I took my Gmat. I got a 770. I got into the exec program at Stanford. I got in as well. But because of a few personal circumstances, I couldn't take it up. This was roughly late 2012, early 2013. And what I did instead was I said, why don't I start a company of my own and see if I'm able to get some of the elements I wanted in a job. So that's when I started HKUST Academy. And because I had been through this journey for a period of 6 months, it was sort of easy for me to start. We were initially a test prep center, and by the end of 2013, we started helping the candidates who prepared for the GMAT with us. We got good results, and then the next year, we started enrolling people who had not prepared for a GRE or a GMAT, but just came to us for admissions counseling. By the third, we were completely focused on counseling and not on test prep, right? So that's been our journey. Our results have been increasingly better year on year. This year, I've already had admits from Duke. I've had admits from INSEAD. I've had admits from NUS. I've had admits from ISB. And we are still just in November, heading on to December, right? So hopefully by December 15, I would hear from, I've had admits from Stern as well this year. So that's 5 very, very highly ranked colleges, right? Definitely in the global top 10, top 12. So some of the other colleges will be releasing their results in the next 10 to 15 days. So hopefully we will have some more additions to this tally and some more very positive results as well. About HKUST Academy, yeah, like I said, we've been in business since 2013 and we've had excellent results. We've had people getting into Harvard, we've had people getting into both Kellogg, MIT, Duke, Darden Ross, Kellogg, Tuck, Cornell, you name it, right? Pretty much every college in the top 15 in the US, INSEAD, LBS, Oxford, Cambridge, HEC, IEI SASADE in Europe, NUS, NTU, and HKUST in Asia, and finally ISB, IIM A, and IMB in India, right? So that's a very brief introduction. The rest of this is just going to be a Q&A. So please ask me whatever questions you have outstanding, and then I'll try my best to answer. Okay. Any order? So if you're feeling a little shy, you can type in your questions.
Yeah, is it okay if I go first?
Rahul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rahul, go on.
Yeah, hi Karthik. Good evening. I've tried to reach out to you a couple of times as well, and over mail as well. I applied to the top 8 this year, leaving out a couple of colleges out. Like I applied to M7 and HAAS this year.
Okay.
And mostly I've got rejections, waiting just for Kellogg's decision.
Okay.
One, I wanted to understand what I should try in round 2 if I want to apply in a couple of more colleges. Which colleges do you think would offer me the best chance if I want to go into product management after my MBA? And other, if you could help me understand what might have gone wrong so that I could plan if I want to reapply next year and try again next year for the top 7 colleges.
Okay.
So I'll need your help with evaluating that. I am ready to wait for another year. That's not a problem with me. But I'll need more practical understanding of where it went wrong to be able to make that decision.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give a broad-based answer here, Rahul, and then we can customize for you at a later point in time. All right.
Okay.
Broadly speaking, getting into the top 7 is very difficult. Okay, I mean, not just for you, but for any one of the 15 people in our room, and for anyone else from India who's applying. Okay, so that's the selectivity is about 5 to 7% for a top 7, top 8 college. Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean? If 100 people apply, maybe around 5 to 7 people get in. Okay, that's not very great odds to start out with. And this is across the world. Now, for Indian candidates, this statistics gets skewed a little bit more. All right. Why do I say this? See, unofficial, off the record kind of comment about Duke last year. All right.
Yeah.
So what I heard was there were about 400 applications in early decision last year. Okay, so don't quote me on this. I mean, the person who gave me this did not want to be quoted either, but this is just for explanatory purposes.
Yeah.
Okay. So about 400 people applying in early decision, and roughly around 80 to 100 people made it. Okay. So, you know, just for the sake of clarity, let's assume that 100 people made it. It's a very nice number, right?
Yeah.
400 people apply, 100 people make it. What is the selectivity now? 25% in ED?
Yeah.
Yeah. 25% seems great. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, from the 100 people, around, if you look at it, around 60% are American candidates, right? And usually around 65-35. So 65 people are American and 35 people are from the rest of the world. If you assume that 1/3 of the rest of the world candidates are from India, which is a fair assumption, you will end up with about 11 people from India. Okay, so in ED, we have 65 people from the US and 11 people from India. Okay, and we had 400 applications going in, 100 people getting selected, 25% selectivity, not a problem at all. Now, let's look at the 400 applications now. It turned out that around half of these applications were from American candidates. Okay, a little less than half even, maybe about 40% of the applications. So somewhere between 160 to 200 applications come from American candidates, and 65 of them are selected. Okay. Now suddenly the odds for American candidates look extremely good, right?
Yes.
So instead of 1 in 4, now it's like 1 in 3 or 1 in 2.5, which is actually better for them now. Okay. About 40 to 50 candidates from the rest of the world, and about 150 to 200 candidates from India. So even assuming the bottom number of 150, right, the lower number of 150, if you think that 11 people have been selected from this 150 pool, that's less than 1 in 15, right?
Yeah.
So now the American candidates odds have improved from 25% to 1/3 or 1 by 2.5. That's like 40% if you count their statistics. Whereas the Indian candidates odds have reduced from roughly 25% to 1 in 15, which is like, I don't know, 6.5 or 7%.
Yes.
Okay, this is odds for Duke. Early decision doesn't apply to all colleges, doesn't apply across all rounds, but it is to be representative here. Okay. So whatever the numbers may be, the numbers are much worse for Indian candidates. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. It is even worse for Indian candidates from a technology background. Okay. So if that tech background applies to you, that is actually not your fault. I mean, it's the way you've lived the last 4 years of your life, or maybe even the last 8 years of your life. You went to college, you picked up a certain degree and a discipline, and then you picked up a particular job without awareness of how it is going to affect you 4 years later, without even knowledge that you would be seeking an international MBA, right? So at every stage in time, if you did what you did right, then, you shouldn't have any regrets. But from here, looking backwards, as a techie, as an Indian applicant, the odds are heavily stacked against you. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. Now, the odds can become better if you've started a company of your own, or if you've received very rapid promotions in your organization, or anything of that sort. Your Gmat matters till the point you hit about a 750 or a 760. Beyond that, it stops mattering as of this year. Next year, the advice may be different. I may ask people to get a 770, who knows? But as of this year, 750, 760, and then it stops mattering. Okay. If your Gmat is lower than that, then definitely there is some differentiation that you can achieve by getting a higher Gmat, but this is not for everybody. All right. So if your capacity is 720, then be happy with 720. Don't break your head trying to get a 740 or a 750 if that is difficult for you. Okay. But yeah, the Gmat score matters as well. So what am I coming to with all this? Maybe you should look at lower ranked programs. Okay, so that's one thing. And of course, I mean, there's always the caveat that the application you submitted may not have been the most impactful. That's there. I expect that to have about a 20% impact on your overall result. 80% will be based on your profile. Okay. So, 20% impact would mean if you had a bad application, you will get about 10 to 12 marks. If you had a very good application, you'll get 16 to 17 marks. So the differentiation is not 20%. The differentiation is actually 5 or 6. Okay. About 80 will still be the profile. So examine your profile, examine your application material. If your application material was on the 12 rather than the 17 side, that's another 5 points you can achieve. So these are areas where we can help you. But on the 80, if you are scoring 50 versus 75, then obviously that's a much bigger gap. That cannot be addressed by a 5-point jump. Okay. So that's the bottom line here. Try a lower ranked set of programs. And then, if you believe there's room for improvement in your application, definitely that's also something that you can look at. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just one. And the other part of the question, like which colleges do you think can be targeted in the second round?
I am not sure, Rahul. I mean, we actually charge for our shortlisting program. And it requires me to do some work, actually. I need to understand your profile in a little bit more detail. And then, profile implies what kind of work do you do and how effective have you been at your organization, Gmat, which kind of college did you study and all that. But broadly speaking, for an Indian candidate, if you have a 740 plus, then a top 20 program should be doable. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, Karthik, I think I can reach out to you about scheduling a session, paid session for that shortlisting if possible.
Sure, send me an email. I'm a little busy right now, but I'll try my best to do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Karthik.
Yeah. So Nandita and Pradeep have questions, and then I have a few questions on the chat window. Maybe I'll take 2 questions from the chat window, and then I'll come to either Pradeep or Nandita. Yeah. So Avdesh has a question. What are the chances if someone is put on waitlist in R1? It's anybody's guess. Please keep in touch with them. Thank them for their consideration. Obviously, there is something to like in your profile, which is why they have waitlisted you instead of rejecting you. So that's meant to be taken as good news, not as bad news. But apart from that, you'll need to examine why you could not quite make the cutoff. Oftentimes, I found that it is that they have a good profile, but they don't have a sufficient Gmat. So it would help to take the Gmat once more and improve by about 20 points. Sometimes your Gmat may not be the problem, your work profile may not be the problem. It may just be that you're in a very competitive pool of applicants. In which case, have people ever traveled by train in India? Any show of hands, yeah? Yeah. So it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. I usually book last minute, and I usually, I do the Bangalore Chennai route. Okay, so you have this Shatabdi, and it's okay to book when it's on waitlist because it's going to get cancelled. The Bangalore Chennai route people, what they do is whether they have travel plans or not, they just book the tickets. Okay, and then on Friday they decide, hey, you know what, I don't feel like traveling today, so I'm going to cancel my ticket. So it's okay to book a waitlisted ticket because there are lots of people like this who are going to be canceling things. Right. So what happens is you book your ticket, you get a wait list, and then it becomes an RAC, and then it becomes a confirmed ticket or something along those lines, right? So in some sense, it's the same thing here, but except different people are put in different buckets, right? You have techies, you have lawyers, you have healthcare professionals, you have consultants, you have bankers, you have other kinds of finance people who are in corporate finance, etc. And then there could be other cross sections as well: Indian guy consultant, Indian girl lawyer, so on and so forth. So given that they look at diversity in 2 or 3 different dimensions, there's multiple reasons for why you could get called out, but you'll just have to wait your turn. Okay, so most people I've seen that if their Gmat is not sufficient but they have a good profile, they are waitlisted. If that is your case, please definitely improve your Gmat. That's a very easy thing to do. Other than that, if there's nothing left to improve, then keep in touch with them, let them know that you're interested, and then just hope that things work out for you. I'll tell you a positive story. There was a candidate of mine who started out the application process while she was in India, and she applied to a few programs. In fact, she applied in round 3, I believe. Okay, so that's a very difficult story, right? And then I didn't hear back from her for a month or so, and then she suddenly wrote to me and said, "Hey, Karthik, I've gotten married and I've moved to the US and whatnot." Like, wow, great, congratulations! And now, what happened was this was also the week she was hearing back from colleges. She got a few interviews, and then a month later, which is roughly in May or something, she actually got waitlisted. Okay. College starts in what, July or August. And I said, hey, you know what, you should keep in touch with them, and you should write to them, and you should let them know that you are ready to take it up at very short notice, which is exactly what she did. And she got into Darden about a month before college started. Okay. Now, the same thing is not likely to happen for you, in the sense, nothing so late is likely to happen for you, because you may actually have to go through a visa approval process, whereas that part was cleared for her, right? She was already in the US. But assuming the visa process takes around 3 to 4 months, I think it makes sense for you to keep your hopes up till about March, maybe April. Okay. Nandita has a question. Can I take your question, Nandita?
Hi,
Have
Karthik.
you already written it out?
My question, no. So I was
Yeah.
looking for some post-application advice. I applied to 3 programs in Europe, in the UK this year, Oxford, Cambridge, and LPS. I got Cambridge and Oxford. I got, in total, I have a 50% scholarship from Cambridge, which I used to negotiate 25% scholarship at Oxford. And I got a call today saying that I've made it to LBS. It's not.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. They haven't sent out the email, but I'm wondering how I can use my scholarship offers from the 2 colleges to negotiate some kind of financial assistance at LBS, assuming that they don't automatically offer me any. So what should I take between now and after I receive an official offer? And it's more tricky here because LBS is definitely a higher ranked program. It is easier to get Oxford to pay up a little, considering Cambridge and Oxford are almost always fighting for the same pool of candidates. So how can I leverage this situation to my maximum advantage?
Sure. Yeah. May I know what your background is? Like what kind of Gmat and what kind of profile you have, etc.?
So I worked at I am a Bachelor of Business Studies. We actually spoke once earlier at the beginning of the application cycle. And I pursued my CFA while working at a hedge fund for about 5 years. Post, I moved to non-profit consulting, and I've been working with COVID-19 vaccinations, routine immunizations, and I have a 750 Gmat score.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. I think broadly what you need to be doing is you need to be telling LBS that, hey, I have these 2 offers and I obviously would like to attend LBS, but my finances are tight. If that is the case, if that is not the case, obviously you can't say that, but if that is the case, it's okay for you to say my finances are a little tight, and in spite of the fact that LBS is my first choice, I may be constrained to make suboptimal choices, so on and so forth. But it's just a request, I mean, there's no like hard and fast negotiation or something that's possible here. So don't go in with that expectation of, I mean, people use the word negotiation for this, but it's not a negotiation. Okay. We don't have the same kind of power with the college.
True. That's right.
The actual negotiation happens when there's 2 parties with equivalent power, right?
Right.
So you can explain your circumstances and you can put forward a request. And sometimes colleges, if they really like you, they will oblige. And if they don't, then, take it with a smile and then make whatever decision is optimal for you.
Okay. So is there a, like they say, a point of time that I need to wait it out? Because I'm already, like, I had to ask for extensions at Cambridge and Oxford to pay my first deadline deposit. Ideally, I should have paid my deposit at Cambridge already because they have very short windows. So I don't really have a lot of time that I can spend going back and forth with LBS. So is it okay to just let them know when the official email comes right away that these are the colleges, and and also, is it okay to mention the colleges that you have been admitted at? Like between Oxford and Cambridge, people usually advise against it, that you can say I've been offered a position at a higher ranked college and I've been offered this kind of a financial support. So what is the preferred way of going about it with LBS?
See, I mean, I think that it depends on your comfort levels, and that changes from person to person, right? Negotiation is a game of bluff, essentially. Okay. And bluff is a game of, bluff, and it depends on how courageous you are or how much risk you can take. I'm a very conservative guy. I'm very risk averse. I would probably just see, this is my offer letter, and this is what I've been given, and so that nobody has any questions which I cannot defend at a later point in time, right? But let's say if I were to tell somebody that a higher ranked program has made an offer and they say, hey, why don't you send me the offer letter? I would be stuck, right? So I'm the kind of person who would give myself complete possibility of continuing the conversation to its completion, which means I would actually be honest with it step by step, right? But there are some people who are extremely good at bluff, and they can say whatever they can and get away with it. So whatever suits your personality better, I think that's the right answer here.
Sorry, if I may ask the last follow-up question. So
Mhm.
I didn't mean to say that I'll say that a higher rank program has offered me a position in the MBA class. I was wondering if I should state the name of the program. Sometimes it's not advised that say, that so and so program has also offered me, and try to pit two schools against each other, so to speak. Like when I was speaking with Oxford about this, I told them that a highly ranked program in the UK has given me X amount of scholarship, and they did ask in follow up, can you share which scholarships you received and to what amount? So with LBS, should I tell them that X university and Y university have given me so many?
Yeah. The answer is the same, Nandita. I would share.
Okay, got it. Great.
There are some, minor risks that come up with it, in terms of judgment. Oxford and Cambridge are not as highly ranked or, equivalently reputed as LBS, and they may just say, hey, you know what, we are ranked higher than them anyway, so we don't have to give you a scholarship. If you believe in our brand value, you can reach out to us. So that risk is something that's definitely there. But I would still do it this way. I would say, hey, these are the colleges and these are the kinds of offers I'm getting, and I am financially constrained. So that's what I would say.
Okay. And there's no real downside to it if I'm being polite and, respectful in the entire process. Like at most, refuse.
Yeah, that's the worst that can happen. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So there's a private question here. Hi, Karthik. I don't have a high GRE score, but I have a strong data science background of 3.5 years. What are some safe schools that I should apply to later pursue a career in strategy consulting? So the thing about strategy, is this person still with us? I know some people dropped out somewhere in the middle. I guess this person is not with us, but I would still answer it. And if the person comes back later, I can answer it once more. So broadly speaking, strategy consulting firms, which are your McKinseys and Bostons and Bains, really depend on your Gmat score or equivalently your GRE score. And last heard, I believe the cutoff was around 740 or something, which in the GRE world translates to around 332, 333. So with the 320, I don't even think mentioning strategy consulting as a goal is viable. Okay, so you'll have to think about some other goal for yourself. Typically for an Indian female applicant with a 320, which roughly translates to a 660 or a 670, I would ask them to explore a program ranked somewhere in the top 40 or 50 if you're looking at US programs. Okay. Pradeep, I think you had a question too. Please let me know.
Yeah, Karthik. Thank you for having me here. And my question is that, say, I am someone with 8 years of experience in oil and gas in India, and that too in operations with no international experience. And I have a 760 Gmat and a GPA of almost 7. And I would like to know, say, whether I should apply within the top 20 schools or top 15 schools, and what are my chances, say, in the top 15 schools?
You're looking at a regular MBA or an executive MBA, Pradeep?
I'm looking at a regular MBA, 2-year program.
Okay. And within the oil and gas industry, what kind of roles have you taken up?
I have taken up project management roles, production monitoring, and a specialist engineer roles lately. Also, I'm a union leader at my organization, leading 18,000 employees and, say, elected representative.
Okay. I don't know how a capitalist program will view a communist, but that apart, I think you're probably in operations management, right?
Yeah, I am in operations management.
Okay. So I think you should have a good application. Definitely your Gmat is great. I would expect you to be able to close within the top 15 to 20 if you're looking at American programs. Which programs especially, that I think we'll have to sit down, look at your profile and check. I'm not sure if a top 7 or 8 is possible. It may be, it may not be also. Okay. So, it's like touch and go, but definitely, I mean, the second 10, which is from 11 to 20, I think you should be able to close it in that area.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Karthik.
Definitely, yeah. Gaurav has a goodwill message. Thank you, Gaurav. Everything is great. Getting better, rather. So Avdesh has a question. I have been rejected by some of the low-ranking colleges, though I have a very good score of Gmat 740, Tier 1 college passed out, and international experience, except my experience is on the higher side. I want to understand how these low-ranking colleges rejected me because of my higher experience. Should I apply to European colleges instead of US colleges? I am not very sure of this. I think I will actually need to look at your application to figure out what happened. This could have happened for a variety of reasons. Maybe you belong to a very competitive pool of applicants. First of all, I don't know what you mean by lower ranked programs, right? So, in my mind, lower ranked programs would probably mean programs ranked around 30 to 50. Okay. But maybe in your mind, lower ranked programs are programs ranked 8 to 15, right? So first of all, there's this question of definition. But broadly, I would expect with a 740, you should be able to get into a top 20 program, provided your experience is, about average. Definitely having exceptional experience would be useful, but anything average, above average would still work. Yes, I mean, 7-8 years of experience is on the higher side. If you have much more than that, then definitely that is much more on the higher side. European colleges typically have an average age at intake of around 29, which means around 6 to 7 years of experience. So if you had about 8 to 9 years of experience, you would be slightly older than the average, but still within normal limits. So if that fits your profile, then you can consider European programs as well. People from sales functions are finding it difficult to apply, and this is something that's historical. So if that suits your profile, then that could be a reason why it's difficult also. So, and sometimes maybe it's just that your application material in terms of essays and maybe your interview performance was weak. So it could be any number of reasons, right? Abhi has a question. Hi Karthik, what may have led to lesser Indians making it to the cohort? It would be great if you shed some light on that. No, I mean, about 7 to 8% of most American programs are made up of Indian people. I don't think that's more or less than anything. That's about average. It's a foreign program, right? I mean, it's an American program in the US run for Americans. And if you're looking at European programs or Singaporean programs, their primary responsibility is to educate their citizens. And we would consider it the same way, right? So just a minute, please. I think there's this concept of do not disturb. Just hold on. Yep. So that's all there is to it. They have no obligation to educate Indian people, and whatever they're doing is a service. So I think that's how we should look at it. So Ashwin has a question. What's the difference between an MIM and an MBA? Is an MIM good for 5+ years of experience? No, absolutely not. So if you have more than 5+ years of experience, then no, I mean, the MIM is not even a degree that you should be considering. The MIM is something that's targeted at new graduates or people with less than 2 years of experience. It's a mezzanine degree. It's roughly between a bachelor's in management and a master's in management, right? I mean, even though it's called a master's degree, it's not as comprehensive as an MBA. Mm-hmm. And the kind of roles you would get after an MIM are also slightly more junior compared to the kind of roles you'll get after an MBA. So I usually don't recommend that people take up MIM degrees unless they are really, really in a hurry. Okay. If you're not in a hurry, then just wait for like 3-4 years, get a good Gmat score, apply to a top ranked program, get into business school, get an MBA. Right? That's what I would say. Do you do some sort of career counseling? Like, I'm thinking of a career change post MBA. Could you help me choose a path? This is something that we can discuss, but perhaps reach out to me after Jan 15 or so that we can get done with round 2, and then we can discuss. Do you also help build profile by suggesting right courses? Yeah, I mean, we can look at all of this. I saw a course, HEC Masters in Strategic Management. How different is it from an MBA? It's a master's program. It's not an MBA. Look at their career outcomes, reach out to some students and alums and figure out what kind of jobs they've taken up, and see if that is satisfactory. If that is satisfactory, then you can take it up. Otherwise, it would be best to go for an MBA, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's a question of figuring out outcomes and figuring out if the outcomes provided are satisfactory to you, right?
Okay.
So
And one thing, like I want to apply for the second round, actually. Yeah. So I contacted you like last week. I'm scrolling on December 10th. I booked my Gmat. I'm taking it again. Suppose that I want to discuss regarding the round 2. Can you help me choose a path? Then or will it be a too short of a time? Maybe I stick to my storyline currently, whatever storyline I have to get into an MBA. But then just to build my profile and just to get equipped to the new line which I want to choose, could you help me with that?
Reach out to me when you're done with the Gmat. All right.
Okay.
I don't know how I would be on bandwidth at that time. Okay. I expect December to be a very, very busy month. It's already busy right now.
Yeah.
If I have time, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I just another 10 days. So if I have to book some prior, I'll just contact you over mail and do it formally also.
No, I mean, the point is I have certain commitments I've made for other people, right? So my time first is accounted by the sessions that I can give my students who signed up with me.
Yeah.
And only after that, if I have time, I can, spend with you, right? So that's how I would prioritize things.
Okay.
So send me an email. If I have the time, definitely, I'll be happy to help out. If I think it's going to be a little difficult, but in case I have the time, I'll definitely be happy to help, right? But after Jan 15, I think everything will ease out. So that should definitely be possible at that time.
Okay.
All right. So there's a direct question, a direct message here. Is this person with us? Perhaps not, but I'm going to answer this anyway. Hey Karthik, I have 2.5 years of work experience at present, and people have told me that I have less work experience. Should I wait for next year or apply in round 3? No, please don't do round 3. There is no reason for you to. Round 3 is difficult, especially in an already crowded year. And you are definitely on the younger side. Okay. So wait a year, get a very good Gmat score, try to see if you can get better responsibilities at work, and then apply next year with all of these in place. And I think you'll have a much better application. So Ashish has a question. Hi Karthik, I've been asked to add references on my application. Can I add ex-colleagues who now work at different organizations? That's perfectly fine. Preferably people who worked with you in a supervisorial capacity. So someone who's been your manager, but who now works for a different company. That would be preferable to someone who was a peer. Okay. Abhi has a question. What are some things for one to highlight in their application if the Gmat score is lesser than 700 and they still want to apply to top programs? Your leadership experience, your extracurricular activities. What else? And the kind of strategic impact you've had on your company. All right. But having said that, if your profile is more or less average or above average, then a 700 may not work for anything in the top 20 or 25 if you're an Indian male applicant. Okay. Let's see. Is there any difference between MBA programs from the US versus Europe? Ashish has a question. Mostly American programs are 2 years, European programs are 1 year, or a little bit more than a year. European programs are globally more diverse. American programs are also diverse, but about 60% of the class does come from the US itself. Now, European classes tend to be slightly older than American classes. So something like a Harvard or Stanford may have people as young as 23, 24, going up to 30, 35, but the average may still round off to around 26 or so. Whereas in Europe, the classes have an average age of around 28, 29 at the minimum. So these are some of the differences I can think of. Other than that, just a question of where do you see yourself building your career? If you see yourself building your career in the US, then go for an American program. If you see yourself building a career in Europe, then go for a European program. So, Rahul has a question. You mentioned 770 as a threshold score for next year. No, that's not what I said. I said I may have to, but at this point, I don't know. So don't worry too much about it. If you have a 760, I think that's perfectly fine. Do I see competition increasing next year? I have no idea. This could just be a temporary thing from last year and this year. And maybe after the economy comes back on track, people will not be looking to get back to business school, and people may still be happy at work. So anything may happen next year. So don't worry too much. 760 is a great score. So be happy with it right now. Finish up your round 2 applications, and hopefully you get in round 2. The 770, we can take it as an oddity. That was just a joke, right? So don't give it too much seriousness at this point. Alan has a question. Alan.
Hey Karthik. So I'm a candidate with around 27 months of experience.
Okay.
Right now,
that's 2.5 years roughly. Yeah,
it's just roughly 2.5 years. And let's say I apply for the cohort of 2023. Right. So at the time of application, I'll have around 3 years of experience.
Okay.
Right. So does my experience prior to the MBA, will it limit my career options that I have after the MBA?
To a certain extent, yes. Okay. What I mean by that is your career pre-MBA, you would be working in a particular industry in a particular function, right? So by working in that industry and function for a period of 3 to 4 years, you will develop industry expertise. Okay. And you'll also develop some functional expertise. Now, usually what happens is people retain either the industry or the function post MBA. Okay. So you can be in the same industry, do something different. So let's say you're a techie, you're a software engineer, coding, QC, whatever. You may still be in the tech industry, but you may be in a product management function. Okay. Moving from a software engineer to a management consultant is a little bit more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a little bit more difficult because you're also changing industries. Okay. Getting into banking or finance will be even more difficult because that means specialization. Financial roles, almost all the people who get into financial roles post MBA will have some sort of financial experience pre-MBA. So from India, you would either be a CA or a CFA already, and you would also already be working in a fintech role or a corporate finance role, or you would be a functioning chartered accountant or something like that. So it's very rare for somebody else to break into the financial services industry. So yeah, I mean, that's my answer to your question.
All right. Can I add to this question? All right. So I am from the engineering consulting background. So I work for a company that designs power plants. Right. So I am in the design function and I design subsystems. And eventually they moved on to product designing. So they started building products for products that use analytics to better the efficiencies of power plants. Right. So I started initially in development, and now I oversee certain programs. Right. I make sure that the development happens, and to an extent, I do a little bit of marketing. Right. So what kind of roles can I expect post MBA?
We'll actually have to sit down and think. But it's a
Right.
little too premature, Alan. I mean, I think first of all, you need to take up your Gmat. And,
No,
spend
I have
another year
taken
or
it. I have around 710.
710, okay. 710 implies applying to strategy consulting will be a difficult task.
Right.
Okay. So if you've been working on software products, then product management may be a decent career path.
Right.
But don't quote me on it. This is not the same as professional advice, because when we decide this for our students,
Right.
I usually have a lot more information. Right?
Right.
In fact, I'll tell you something very straightforward. I work with several people from this company called ZS Consulting.
Okay.
Okay. ZS is a company that's in pharma and pharma Salesforce consulting,
Okay.
specifically speaking. Okay. Lots of very good people work there. They hire from India's best colleges, and usually ZS people have very high Gmat scores, so they get good placements also. Okay. So nowadays it's come to the point where somebody, if they just say that they work for ZS, I automatically make an assumption that, hey, they have this certain kind of programs that they worked on, and there's this certain kind of insights that they've delivered to their clients. And usually it's about an oncology drug in Europe or Thailand or North America, or within North America, New England or something, and they would basically have some idea about the health conditions of a local population, the efficacy of a drug, and which kind of doctors to check in with, and what kind of incentives do you provide. That's the kind of work they do usually. Yeah. But then there was this new candidate that I started working with who somehow still doesn't fit. He works for ZS, but he's a data engineer, not a data scientist. Right? A data engineer is somebody who works with data, creates data warehouses, very IT oriented role. Okay. Now, this is the first time I'm working with somebody like this. Okay. Now, if somebody were to tell me that they have developed insights for clients based on data analysis, etc., and they have like a 740 or 750, I'll say, hey, you know what? Why don't we try strategy consulting for you? Okay. If somebody works for even Infosys or any one of the IT services companies and has, hands-on coding experience, I would say, hey, why don't we do product management for you? Okay. Now, for my data engineer, he is much more technical than the other ZS people I've worked with. Okay. But he doesn't code to the same level that my Infosys guys do.
Correct.
Right. So I don't even know where this person fits. So, it's still a work in progress, what we're doing. Right. So similarly, I think we'll also have to do a lot more examination before we identify something perfect.
Right.
But broadly speaking, I mean, if you're working in the software domain, something like product management should be good. But don't take it as a one-size-fits-all answer, because there are caveats and empters. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll close in another 7 or 8 minutes. But before that, let me just try to see if we can answer a few questions. Ashish has a question. I'm applying to the first and second best MBA colleges in the Netherlands. However, the second best college in Netherlands does not have a high global ranking. Will that affect my employability within the Netherlands? I don't have a lot of experience with this, so I cannot give you an answer based on my experience. But based on my assumption, I think it should be okay, right? So I've had people studying at Rotman and getting into good job opportunities. I don't even know what the second best MBA college in Netherlands is, right? So that's where I am. But broadly speaking, if you're in the second best MBA college in a particular geography, then you can't go wrong, especially if you're looking for jobs within the same geography. Abhi has a question. I've heard you say male and female applicants several times on the call. I'm curious to know how much preference a specific gender has over the other. Additionally, is there any preference given to people that belong to minority marginalized communities? Okay. Yeah, I mean, definitely male applicants have a lot more difficulty getting into MBA programs than female applicants of the same pedigree. Okay. Why is that? Again, it has to do with the numbers. Usually we have a lot more male applicants applying. This is not from India, this is from across the world. Okay. So these numbers are for explanatory purposes. These are not actual numbers. Okay. So if you look at it, most MBA programs have a 60-40 ratio trying to become a 50-50 ratio. Okay. So let's say 55-45, right? So 55 guys, 45 girls in a class of 100 people. And assuming 400 people apply here, you can very safely assume that 300 of those applications will be from men and 100 of those applications will be from women, which means 300 guys apply for 55 spots, 100 girls apply for 45 spots. So you calculate which is easier, right? So there's no gender preference. This could be any binary classification where one of the two classifying elements has a very high population of applicants and the other high classifying element has a very low population of applicants, right? So it could be people with 5 fingers and 6 fingers, right? So with regards to minority marginalized communities, yes, but if you are talking about a traditional minority marginalized community as in the Indian context, that may not carry forward in the American context or even the European context, okay? What do I mean by that? I mean, in India, we have a reservation, right? And there are certain communities where, you know, you have like a higher percentage of reservation than certain other communities, okay? This may not be recognized outside in the US. There they recognize their own minorities by demographics. So they would recognize Black applicants, they would recognize Indian American applicant, Indian American meaning, you know, Native Indian, not Indian, right? They may recognize Hispanic American applicants. So these are the traditional demographic or ethnicity-based minorities there, okay? There could be minorities in the applicant pool, people from Africa, people from basically not India, China, or Korea, right? In any other country. Women, traditionally 50% of the human population, so not a minority, but a smaller number of women applicants than men applicants. So that's something that to be considered. LGBT candidates are considered minorities. So that is probably one classification. If you belong to within India itself, you would still be considered in the same classification in the US. So that's the only minority classification that I think will translate from the Indian context to the American context. Nothing else will translate. Vichitraveer has a question, MBA in finance versus MS in finance if I want to transition into the finance domain. If you want a management oriented role, get an MBA. If you want a technical role, get a master's. So if you want to work in, let's say, a mutual fund company analyzing stocks, get an MS. If you want to be the technical expert in a fintech company, get an MS. If you want to be the product manager, get an MBA, right? What are good schools other than American, European, and Canadian schools which offer scholarships? I mean, you pretty much covered all major geographies. So I think that would be it. So Yash has a question. I have a background in areas related to nuclear engineering. What kind of role can I expect after MBA? I have a total of 7 years background with GPA of 8.85, which is good. Which US MBA colleges shall I apply to? I mean, it really depends on what you've done in nuclear engineering, right? So let me give you an example. I used to work for General Motors, love the company, not my role though. We used to have a variety of people. We had the R&D team. I was part of the R&D team. And we had engineers, and there were different kinds of engineers, right? So there were people who would do computer-based engineering, and there were people who would be on the shop floor. And between the people in the computer-based design teams and the shop floor, there were like other categories of engineers, right? I mean, we had people, let's see. So there were the designers, and then there were the people who would design for manufacturability, which is the people who would take the components and then figure out how to make subcomponents from there and how to assemble it. So there were a group of people who did that. And then there were the buyers who would pretty much keep in touch with a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, basically give them the designs for these components and get it manufactured and QC'd, quality controlled, right? And then once the product is manufactured from the supplier base, it would be shipped to the factory. So the design team could be in Bangalore, but the factory could be in Pune or Gujarat or somewhere, right? And there again, I mean, there would be the people who would receive it, and then there would be the people who would assemble it, and then there would be the people who ship it, and then the people who you see, which would be the people on the service line, right? Now, starting from the scientists who work on projects which are like 10, 15 years into the future, all the way up to the shop floor people who work on like projects that are going on right now, and the service line, which is working on projects that happened yesterday, right? There's different timelines, but all of these people may be considered engineers, but within the company, we were like different kinds of engineers, right? But anyway, I mean, this is just one part of GM, right? I mean, apart from that, the company, in order for it to function smoothly, we had HR people, we had IT, we had, I don't know, risk, we had corporate finance, and then we had like a whole gamut of people, right? There was legal and patenting and whatnot. So yeah, nuclear engineering is not sufficient. It also depends on what you did at your company, okay? And your functional role may determine what you do after your MBA. The 8.85 is good, but I think the Gmat is more determined, more correlating with what kind of colleges you may get into. So if you have a 740 plus, then I think a top 20 should be doable, right? Okay, I think that's all the questions. Would we provide assistance for masters in financial engineering? Yes and no. We have the capability to do this. It depends on our bandwidth, right? So you can write an email. At this point, the bandwidth is a little low, but if your deadlines are in the latter half of January or in February, then I think we can definitely help you with that. So please send me an email. All right, sounds good. I think that's all the questions we had today. Thank you so much for making it. And please like, share, and subscribe our videos on YouTube. That will help us, that will keep us motivated, and we'll do more of these sessions. I think this is probably our 15th or 16th session this year. So by the end of this year, we'll probably be done with around 20. So, keep us motivated, give us a like, share, subscribe, and then I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you.